I kind of speculated that Wargaming was going to release this vehicle in crates sometime soon, and as a matter of fact, I was right. It is currently 8:09 in the morning, and I literally rushed to get up and get my hands on this vehicle as quickly as I can. And yes, like I said, the 116 F3 has been introduced in crates, but the only problem is that this is the start, pretty much, of Wargaming nerfing them from a 5% drop chance now back down to 4, and increasing the prices by an extra 5%, which is unfortunate, especially because my wallet is clearly crying for mercy, as I had to spend over $120 in order for me to get my hands on the vehicle. Only took me 20 out of the 30 charms in order to get it guaranteed, which is the most unfortunate part. So guys, don't go spending your life savings on crates nowadays. Just wait until the vehicle comes out individually all by itself. But like I said, this is the 116 F3, a tier 10 Chinese collector heavy. A vehicle that has gotten drastic amounts of changes throughout the course of the previous update. The vehicle, first off, has received more armor, which means that it's more going to be beneficial in terms of holding a lot of flanks that occur throughout one side of the map. And the vehicle also did receive a 130mm auto-loading gun, which is basically the same as the Krons. However, you got much better pen than the Kron, and about 10 more alpha than the Kron does. In terms of clipping potential, Shell 2 and Shell 3 are going to be a little bit worse, while Shell 1 is mainly going to be the major strong point at 9.05 seconds. But because it is an autoloader, basically means that you would have to dump your clip in order to gain your DPM. Along with the original 130mm with the high alpha of 490 on the standard, it did get a little bit better in terms of its aiming time. It has 4.3 as from what used to be, I think it was 4.9, but the dispersion is kind of lackluster at 0.323. And in terms of what the armor profile looks like, you got 248 on the front of its turret and 196 on the front of its hull. And this is what the current armor profile in this new update looks like. This is against a WZ-111 5A with 281 mils of standard penetration. To which, basically, there's going to be a lot of troll spots that occur on the vehicle. And it's pretty much something to what I remembered pretty much on the console variation, because I did a video like that in the past, and the armor profiles are now, surprisingly enough, very similar. To where the upper plate is going to be 320 mils. You got a very tiny lower plate right here. That is the only pen spot, upwards of 127. And then a very troll spot that occurs on the underside, upwards of 230. The infrastructure that surrounds the turret and the upper infrastructure is pretty much going to be a very troll spot on the vehicle. And the majority of the turret as well is going to be surprisingly really strong. But when I load in my premiums with calibrated shells of 342, the cheeks are now opened up to a little bit of a more substantial margin, now sitting at 324 in most cases. The vehicle also carries 6 degrees of gun depression. It's kind of like the BZ-75, to where the cheeks open up to a much bigger margin to what they are present on flat ground, now upwards of 283 to 327. That's going to kind of be the most unfortunate part about the 116 F3, so expect to be penned in the turret here and there. Should also mention that the hatches on this vehicle are actually substantially small and wedged down as apart from the upper part of the turret, which means if you are hold down like this, you're not necessarily going to have a easy time trying to hit those hatches. I mean, because you're pretty much just going to bounce it in any way, shape, or form, which is kind of unfortunate, especially for that. And in terms of the side of the vehicle, the side of the turret is 149 to 148, and then the full-on side is upwards of 168 to 119. And then for the rear, the back of the turret is upwards of 82, and the full-on rear where the engine deck is located is upwards of 72. To which HEs, as apart from a 5A, is not going to be enough in order to cut through this vehicle. And then finally, for your maneuverability, you go 42 forward and 15 in reverse, and you have a power to weight of 13.3 while at it. Not to mention the fact that this vehicle also carries reactive armor, which will reduce the damage as apart from what your enemy's average damage output is by 27%. And you also carry sandbags, which will improve your hit point factors. This thing, surprisingly enough, has pretty beefy hit points at 2695. So the 116 F3, as apart from what I heard in the Blitz variation, is a little bit of a rat vehicle. And especially because I am running the stock gun first, as even if as it did get a decrease on its aiming time and dispersion levels, I could still kind of see that it is a little rat. I've seen a lot of people play this thing, and they've said that it's pretty much a terrible tank. But as apart from the new update, I have been hearing a lot more positive feedback about this thing as apart from it receiving its auto-loading gun, because a lot more people are using that due to the fact that it's got much better aiming time and dispersion, and you have much better clipping potential, and that you're able to produce about 1200 damage out of your opponents, as opposed to waiting another 11 seconds in order to have a pretty decent clipping potential. So here we are located on into our first game. Let's see what they got. They have a M454, they have a IS-7, and it looks like that's all that they would have. So it looks like we have some pretty decent support coming with us over towards the left side of the map. So we're going to go ahead and benefit ourselves by relying on this vehicle's decent maneuverability, I should say. And let's see how the 116 F3 can handle this. So we're going to be moseying our way right along over here. So mainly what I want to try to do is I want to kind of treat this gun the same way as... Okay, I was going to try to treat it the same way as the 114 SB2, but we already get a nice tap into the Comp Panzer for 540, so we're going to reload once again. The IS-7 is making a very dire mispoke as apart from that, which it looks like he's going to over-aggress by the looks of it. So we're going to get to a side right here, and we're going to get a 457 slap into his vehicle. He does miss us as apart from that, which is really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mosey on up as he did fire once again. We're going to kind of see and get right to his side right there. There we go. 482 slap into his vehicle. Okay. Pretty decent showcase so far, but we are a little bit in a situation here. The IS-7 is going to kind of over-aggress a little bit. We got the Comp Panzer. We're going to plop on a reactive, get a 491 slap into his vehicle once again. And that's the beauty of reactive armor, just basically when your tank is fully on exposed and it's more vulnerable to your enemies, then you are able to plop it and to do or reduce the amount of damage received by you. Got the AMX, nice tap into the side of his turret for 494. So then we're going to back up once again. Unfortunately, the Comp Panzer does miss us, which is really good. So that's going to give me the opportunity to mosey on through. We're going to kind of see if we can get a clear into the AMX M4, which is exactly what we do. We got our adrenaline back, so we're going to plop that on real quick. And then we're just going to reload once again. That IS-7 is basically cleared at that point, so we're going to head right on over towards this enemy Comp Panzer right over here and deduct his hit points by an even further margin. Hopefully we will. Unfortunately, the XM, oh, he does bounce him, unfortunately enough. Come on, come on, come on, come on. I want to rely on my maneuverability. Nice. Okay. So it somewhat did work for the most part. That's really good. So we're going to head right on over here. Let's see what they would have left. We got the 183 off to the side. We also have the grill that's spotted all the way towards the far back. Not really concerned about the YAG as he is now cleared. That's really good. I should also mention that we're past 3,000 damage right now, and the alpha on this thing feels actually pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. Got the 183, 613 max roll into his vehicle. Pretty beefy alpha, if I'm not going to be mistaken. Like, we're up past 3,600 damage now. So what we're going to do is that we're going to mosey on up. We're going to kind of see how the HE values of this vehicle takes into effect. Well, 509. I mean, I can't complain about that. That's just an easy farm fest and a instant steamroll, which is good for the game. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is 4,145 damage from the 116 F3. And still not very many people, surprisingly enough, are doing this type of alpha. And we did immediately get an ace on the vehicle. And that is an instant top on the team in that aspect. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and switch on over towards the 130mm autoloader. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing fully on resupplied real quick, and then we're going to head right on into game number 2 then. So you kind of saw there that the armor profile for somewhat did its job. I mean, This is what the 116 F3 is capable of doing, because of the fact that it has sheer amounts of armor that take advantage over a lot, or like the Kron, for example, which has holding potential, basically means that you can hold off one side of the flank to the best of your ability, much more reliably better. So here we are in game number 2 then. They have a 114 SP2, they have a IS-7, and apparently my stuff didn't save for some odd reason. But that's going to be alright. At least our repair kit's still saved, but oh yeah, because I switched to the autoloader. Okay, that's right, because adrenaline disappears after that. Okay, I kind of see how that tends to be the case. So what we're going to do is that we're going to mosey on up here. We got the enemy IS-7 making a very dire misplay right here. We also got the SP2. We also got the Badger off towards the side. Fortunately, bouncing the first one off of him, which is kind of unfortunate that the heat values of this tank are also a little bit decreased. Unfortunately, the SP2 is right there. We also do get a bounce into his vehicle. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and back on up because I don't necessarily want to deal with the hold down Badger and a 114 SP2. So, let's see. Alright, so we got 2 shells reloaded again, which is good. So, there's the SB2 right off to the side right there. Let's see if we get a gun mantlet shot. Unfortunately, not going to be the case, unfortunately. So, just going to continue to stay put right here. We got the SB2 once again. Yeah, this is a little bit of a weird situation right here. I'm not going to lie. Basically, everybody is just sitting on back and then just relying on hold-down capabilities. And I barely have any support over here. Guys that are just literally going on up over there. Let's see if the Badger wants to have some fun real quick. I don't really care if I get plucked by a TD off in the back right over here, as long as I'm able to get a pretty deep, beefy shot. Okay, here comes the IS-7 coming on through right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mosey my way over towards his vehicle. He doesn't realize I am an autoloader in that aspect. There's 428 out of his vehicle. We're going to go ahead and mosey our way on upwards then, and get a second shot for 420 into his vehicle. We also got the 114 right there. We're going to plop on a reactive just in case so that this guy rolls a little bit lower than expected. Just like that, beautiful. And we also got the IS-7 moseying on through again. There's 480 out of his vehicle once again. Well, it looks like that we are possibly going to get cleared in the process. We did get a bounce, surprisingly enough, so we're just going to angle. Nice. Okay, we did get another bounce. That's really good. So that's going to give us the opportunity to finish off the SP2. There we go. Beautiful stuff as apart from that. And we are finally getting our help, finally. Thank you guys so much for coming on in and supporting me at the last second. So we got the Badger off to the side. We're going to go ahead and get the clear on into you because you are more of a threat, good sir, which is really good. So we're going to go ahead and reload once again. Hopefully, okay, I was going to say if we are able to get the finishing clip off into you. So now we got the 268 off in the back. We're going to go ahead and see if we can reload maybe 2 of our shells in our clip, so that way we'll have the clipping potential in order to get some nice beefy shots into you. So 0, there we go, 397 into you, and 650 out of his vehicle. And just like that, that is what the auto-loading gun is capable of doing. And another prime example of the 116 F3. For the most part, I mean, we kind of made up for the fact that we pretty much had to hold off 3 guys that are basically hold down. And a much better example for the armor profile, by the way, as angling does sincerely work for the most part. We aced the vehicle once again because, of course, nobody's still hardly ever using it. And another top on the team in that aspect. So I do gotta say that the 116 F3, to what I would picture it would be on World of Tank Blitz, would be a little bit of a rat vehicle. But in retrospect, you can somewhat get away with very positive outcomes that contribute towards what capabilities it features now within the present update. I kind of enjoyed those games, but it's not like my luck will fare well or continuously last for an extended period of time when I'm using this vehicle. And like I said, don't waste your hard-earned life savings, especially since Wargaming nerfed crates from a 5 to a 4%, which means that you'll have a lower percentile chance in order to get your hands on the vehicle. So hopefully you guys did end up enjoying today's video on the other hand, and if you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and make sure to turn on those bell notifications while you're at it, so you do not miss out on any new videos or streams, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace out, y'all.